Beirut, a city 7 times destroyed, 8 times resurrected, and still as resilient as ever. Here, in the American University of Beirut, stands the 3rd oldest museum in the Near East, after Cairo and Constantinople. Nestled inside its walls is a rich collection of archaeological findings that have travelled far and long to find their sanctuary. Like this enigmatic crystal that came from Egypt.
Hello there. What have you come here to tell us? Hey, jaw, dental wire, string of gold. What stories have you recounted? Hey, archaeological treasures. What events did you witness?
In 1868, General Luigi Cesnola, the American consul in Cyprus, offered the SPC, the Syrian Protestant College, later known as the American University of Beirut, its first archaeological collection. In those days, the collection was displayed in College Hall, the first building on campus. To look after these treasures, the founder of the AUB, Daniel Bliss, appointed 2 curators, Dr. Harvey Porter and Dr. and Reverend George Post.
For as long as we can remember, we, warriors of Cyprus, have marched into battle. This spectacular jug once held olive oil.
In 1902, the museum's first walls were erected. Post himself worked on the building's architectural plans and then moved his focus onto designing the herbarium. When it opened its doors, the museum showcased its first collection and later added others, including the iconic busts from Palmyra.
We symbolize immortality. We came from the oasis of the city, Palmyra. We, ceramic sculptures and other manifestations of Islamic craftsmanship, were brought back from the dome of the rock in Jerusalem.
Throughout the First World War, the college remained open, closing only for 2 weeks in 1917. On the 18th of November 1920, the Syrian Protestant College was renamed the American University of Beirut.
By 1922, I, Harvey Porter, had served the museum for 52 years, and after I passed away, Harold Nelson assumed my position.
Nelson was an expert Egyptologist and well-versed in reading hieroglyphics.
He looked at me with his inquisitive, piercing gaze and saw right through me. He was one of the rare few who had that gift.
In 1927, geologist Professor Alfred E. Day took over as curator of the museum.
I was fascinated by the Stone Age. During my tenure, I led the excavations in Ksara-Il. I even flew in a team from Boston College to assist me on unearthing potsherds related to 37 different cultures from a sounding 23 meters deep. The oldest one we found dates back 50,000 years.
In 1930, Dr. Harold Ingolt became curator. Shortly after, Peritus, the first archaeological journal of its time, was published in the region.
In 1932, I surfaced from the earth in the city of Saida. I came to remind the world that dentistry already existed in 500 BC. Yes, these are golden wires.
With the Second World War, the archaeological collections were at risk. Mary Bliss Bayard Dodge, the newly designated curator, took the initiative of moving them into
The Van Dyke Hall, the safest place to protect them from the bombing.
In 1942, 74 years after the establishment of the AUB Museum, the National Museum of Beirut opened its doors. A year later, Lebanon claimed its independence.
We are amulets that date back to the Phoenician era. Our job was to protect our owners from the evil eye. We made it here thanks to Dorothy. Yes, Dorothy McKay, the new curator. She went to a lot of trouble to exhibit us.
In 1951, Dmitry Baramki took over from McKay.
I decided to move the botanical, geological and natural history collections out of the museum. This way we had more space for archaeology in the museum. And I made excavation mandatory in the academic field of archaeology at AUB. Did you know that Judas traded Christ for coins like these? I'm a coin specialist. All the coins here are exquisite.
I am originally from the temple of Ashtarut in Berytus, or Beirut as you know it today, though my temple still remains uncovered.
I am the symbol of Heliopolis, the temple of Baalbek. I go way back to the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Roman period.
I represent Poseidon, god of the 7 seas.
I am the daughter of Adonis himself. My name is Beroe.
I belong to the temple of Marsyas, still buried in Beirut.
Baramki's curatorship lasted 25 years, during which time hundreds of objects were added to the museum's collection. In 1975, Baramki retired. Making way for his young assistant, Dr. Leila Badr, to take over. Badr led the excavation that uncovered the secrets of an intriguing tomb at Tel El Ghasil in the Bekaa Valley.
Thanks to my illustrations of birds and palm trees, archaeologists were able to date both me and the person I was buried with back in time to 1700 BC. I accompanied him towards his rebirth in another life.
Sadly, the events that began in 1975 created a sea of troubles for Lebanon. The archaeological excavations at Tel El Ghasil were halted. The dark days at AUB became even darker with the assassination of President Malcolm Kerr, fatally shot on his way from the museum to his office on January 8, 1984.
They were indeed sad days, but despite the chaos that was prevailing, we achieved great things. We started major excavations at Tel Kazel in Syria and at Shabwa in Yemen. In 1980, I launched the Society of the Friends of the Museum, initiative that made archaeology more popular and accessible to everyone.
The museum opened its doors to exhibitions, conferences, trips, and welcomed the visually impaired, as well as waves of school children. In 1991, when the war was coming to an end, College Hall collapsed after a car bomb detonated, and its towering clock that was once considered everlasting stopped ticking.
I then started looking for the cornerstone that was placed in the foundation of College Hall. I was so happy when I found it, with a lead box that contained many documents from that day of 1871. When the war was over, reconstruction works began, but archaeology had to proceed. I then took charge of Beirut's ancient Tel in 1993. I was so lucky to discover these exceptional jars, the evidence that Beirut was indeed a Phoenician city.
In 2006, with the support of the Friends of the Museum, Badr launched the renovation works that gave the museum the look it has today.
This renovation has been really fantastic for the museum. It gave this museum a new look. It gave it a new dimension. Objects have been brought together into themes. It attracted lots of people. Students came in large numbers to visit. I am very lucky and very happy to be here on this special occasion of the 150th anniversary. To celebrate this anniversary is really something.
A 150 years since its founding, the museum stands proud, filled with precious findings and timeless heritage. Behind it, all the men and women who worked with passion and dedication. Thanks to them, the story of the museum and its rich collections has been passed down from generation to generation, keeping the history of our ancestors alive and present.